watch Midwest Whitetail.
Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, Hoyt, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Frigid Forage, Rocket Arrowheads, Scott Archery, Night and Hail Game Calls, Camden Outdoors, and Nikon.
All right, we're going to go for another little walk here. Come and join me. I'm going to show you one of my favorite terrain features to hunt. It's a ditch. And there's a lot you can do with the ditch. Not only can you use it for access, but you can find a lot of good stand locations right on the edge of a ditch. So there's one right down here. Come on along. Okay, I'm going to start right here where the ditch starts. You can see a low spot in the field behind me, and there's another one about 50 yards ahead of me in front of me. And these are areas where the water gathers in the field and then runs off the field. And usually in the field itself there'll be a grass waterway to prevent erosion. But once all this water gets off the field and dumps into the timber, it gains momentum, gains volume, and it starts to carve out a ditch. And it runs down through these draws, and typically we've got enough topsoil that it bites its way right down through the dirt and then forms these ditches that can be anywhere from 6 to, boy, I've seen them as much as 15, 20 feet deep, and they can be very steep. So they're not only do they create a nice place for walking in and out, but it also creates various places along their distance, along their length, where the deer are funneled through. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk down this ditch, and I'm going to show you one of the most common terrain features that you're going to find in the Midwest and one of the easiest to hunt. So follow along with me. Okay, we're at the top of the ditch now, probably about 20 yards down from the edge of the field. You can see it's just starting to form a little bit of erosion here. Typically what you'll find is the very head of the ditch, the deer will go around the top. This would be a pretty good spot right here, and you can see trails going around the top of the ditch here, and then you'll find other spots along the length of the ditch where the deer are crossing it. So what we're looking for right now is where are the tree stand locations on a ditch. So location number one is almost always at the very top of the ditch, and that's usually the best location too, because the wind is the most stable. You can set up where it's blowing out away from the timber, out into the open, and you can get more of a wind advantage. The further down in the valley you go, the more swirling you get and the tougher it is to hunt. So keep that in mind. The very top of the ditch is a great spot for a tree stand location. Okay, I just came a little ways, 10 yards or so. The ditch is getting a little bit deeper. There's another trail going across here. Now you can start to see some of the trees in here that would make good stand locations. Again, as we go here, you're going to see that the ditch just keeps getting deeper and nastier and thicker, and it's less likely the deer are going to cross it. So follow along. We're going to show you how this ditch progresses from being pretty gradual to being pretty severe here in just a little short ways. Okay, you can see it just keeps getting deeper. Another good crossing right here. Then it really drops off. Ditch goes from being about 2 feet deep here to being about, looks like about 8 feet deep right there. So obviously the deer traffic through here, they take the path of least resistance. I mean, they don't like to make this any tougher than it needs to be, so they're going to go around spots like this rather than trying to go through them. Sure, they can jump over them, but it's just as easy to go around, so they usually go around. So let's keep going down the ditch. Now we're only 60 yards into the timber, and already this ditch is, it's probably 10-15 feet wide and about 10-15 feet deep. I mean, it's really turned into something here. So we'll just keep following it along, and I'll show you some of the crossings where the deer are using as we go down. Oh, by the way, you can see where I could drop in right here and walk down this ditch and stay pretty well concealed from anything on either side, as deep as it is. But this is what I talk about when I say using ditches for access, and this is a perfect one. This would be an easy one to go in and out of. The deer would never know I was here. You can see how deep it is. I mean, literally, if I stayed low, I could sneak right through here. Well, let me show you what it looks like. My feet wet. As you can see, I'm well below the level of the sides of the ditch on either side. So I think you get the idea. They're great ways to get in and out. Okay, as we continue to go down through here, we'll start seeing crossings. And wherever the ditch banks get gradual, where they're not so steep, or maybe they get a little bit lower, you'll see where the deer have crossed there. And the further apart those places are, the more concentrated the deer movement's going to be through any one of those crossings. That's a big deal during the rut, because usually on spots like this, when you've got a ditch, it separates two ridges. This just happens to be a cornfield on that one, but that's more of a bedding ridge up there. So if you've got a bedding ridge and a bedding ridge separated by a ditch, the bucks are going to be traveling back and forth from these two bedding ridges during the rut, and they're going to use these crossings. So finding the crossings or using the top end of the ditch that's the key to making these ditches work for you, especially during the rut. This is the first really good crossing that we've come to on this ditch. You can see it's real gradual on both sides. It's kind of hard to see it right now because the sign is so old, but there's some pretty good trails running. There's one there and there's one there. So basically they come off here and they split and go on either side of this little hill right behind me. But this has been the first, I'd say, other than the very top of the ditch, this is the first spot I've come to that I would start looking for tree stand locations. I mean, this is a spot where I guarantee there's deer passing through during the rut. There's a long gap here, probably, it's close to 75 to 100 yards, where there's no deer crossings at all. So let's keep going until we hit the next one. And I'll show you how much different it is once we get down here deeper into the ditch, where the slopes are so steep that the deer have to literally slide their way down. Okay, I've got a little tip for you walking through these rose bushes. We've got a lot of the multifloral rose here on this farm, and it's got the little hook-shaped thorn on it. It's not such a little thorn either. I mean, they're pretty wicked. If you try to walk through them, they can shred you. But the trick is, you just kind of roll. And as you roll through, then the hooks, they come detached and you can go right through them easily. So I'm going through a rose bush here. So just by rolling, you can go through it real easy. So keep that in mind if you ever get tangled up in a rose bush, just start rolling your way out. Okay, here's the third crossing on this ditch. There was the one clear up on the top, the one about halfway down where there was that rocky bench. And then you can see right here the bank's a little bit more gradual on this side. We'll show you these trails. There's two heavy trails coming down the bank on this side, crossing and going up over here. So really, this whole length of ditch, several hundred yards, maybe 300 yards long, there's only been 3 really good crossings. Some ditches are going to have more crossings than others. You know, for sure, the less crossings, the better, because the deer get funneled more with fewer crossings. Okay, here you can see one of the trails coming off. And like I said, there's 3 crossings basically on this ditch. And if I was going to hunt this one, I don't think I'd be on this one. I think we're down too far, too much swirling wind. The middle one, maybe. But for sure, the one on top would be good. So that's typically what you're going to find with ditches, is they're going to be, you know, just a few spots you can hunt where the wind isn't swirling too bad. The rest of the areas you're gonna have to kind of shy away from. So now I'm gonna take you up on this ridge and pull a tree stand. Back in November, I got desperate, and this is really my sanctuary area here. I was trying to kill that buck called Big, and I couldn't find him. I mean, we're getting trail camera pictures of the deer, but never seeing him. So I pressed a little bit harder than I normally should. I don't even want to stand there. I'm gonna get it out right now. It was a mistake. I never should have been that aggressive to go right into the middle of a sanctuary like that after a deer. So I knew better than that. I just got desperate. So rather than leave that temptation in the tree, I'm going to pull it, get it out of here, that I won't be likely to hunt out of there again. Okay, I got my stands down. I've explored that ditch, found a couple of possible stand locations along it. Now it's time to get back to the truck, and I got a few things I need to do with the family tonight. So hope you enjoyed this segment. We'll be doing some more of this kind of stuff. It's good for me to get out and do this kind of scouting anyway, and I can take you along and kind of show you the stuff that we do on this farm. So thanks for joining me.
Well, quiet on the set. Quiet on the set. Well, we've assembled another gang here to hit the old farm down here in Iowa. It was 4 weeks ago this weekend that we were down here and hit it hard. I think we came up with about 52 antlers. A lot of them were old ones, but and antlers, so we're going to get after it again. We don't expect to find as many this weekend, but we know there's a couple big sides we didn't find, so we're after those today. And follow along, we'll see what we find today. Now the meat kind of funnel down together.
Nice deer. Clay picked this one up. Then he threw it back because he was playing a little catch and release. And now look what he has.
Holy smokes, I wonder what deer that is.
I'd say that antler's gonna go about 82.
Well, we're wrapping up our shed season here in Iowa, and we hit it pretty hard today. We had a pretty big group out here hunting this weekend, and we only came up with 10, 11 antlers, but we did come up with a couple, at least one familiar antler. This is a deer Bill and the gang call the Wide 10, and we came up with that deer today. That's a nice antler. He's a cool deer. And then the prize of the day, my brother Mike came up with another entry into the 80-inch club. And this is a deer. I know this antler wasn't here. Let's see, what was it? 4 weeks ago we shed hunted the same farm in the same ditch, and we put Kurt down in that ditch, and Kurt doesn't miss much, so I know he wouldn't have missed this antler. And this is an antler, like I said, they have no history with this deer. 82-inch antler, beautiful, just a great big old heavy 6-inch base on him. So that was a surprise for the day, and hopefully this is a deer that shows up next year on the farm. I mean, it's right on the edge of Bill's farm where this antler showed up, but he's a cool, old, beautiful, just a heavy, massive antler. Great looking deer. So it was a tough year. I mean, in the past, we've probably found on these same farms, same ridges. I think last year we came up with on our 2 trips, we came up with about 100 antlers. This year, we only showed up with about 60 or 70. And I'm telling you, we had, I'll bet you, 25 antlers that were out there from the year before. So the deer numbers are down. There's no question about it down here, but we still had a blast shed hunting and finding these big old bones laying around out there.
Last week I was talking about bow tuning, and I've learned a couple of things since then that I think you'll find some value in. First thing is, the tuning problems that I was having were consistently going to the left all the time. So I thought maybe it was my arrow stiffness, but when I turned my draw weight way down, it still was tear and tail left. So I thought, well, it's got to be something else. It has to be something in my shooting form. So I started playing with my grip a little bit, and then I moved over to my release hand. So there's only 2 places where we make contact with the bow, on the grip and on the string. So I just focused on relaxing my grip hand more and making sure on my release side that I was pulling straight back, and I hadn't gotten into the lazy habit of pulling the string to the side. You know, like sometimes I'll get where my elbow is behind me too much. It needs to be straight in line with the arrow. So anyway, just those 2 things really straightened out my arrow flight. So just shooting form stuff, it can really catch up on you if you haven't been shooting a lot. It's been a while since I've done much shooting. So one thing we're going to do over the course of the next few episodes is really focus on the bow tuning process. I've gotten a lot of feedback from viewers coming in off the website with questions and comments. So we're really going to break it down and take the whole process all the way through, just a little at a time each week. So come back again next week. We're going to surprise you. I don't know for sure what we're going to have, but I'm sure we'll find something to do out in the woods. And we're going to touch on bow tuning some more. So I appreciate you joining us. We'll see you again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.